And if it doesn't, then there's a problem somewhere and we'll figure it out. Sweet. Okay. Um, Now I'm all off my game. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Atlantic Bushcraft Adventures. Tonight, episode 195, talking about footwear. And first, a little bit of reasoning as to why we are 25 minutes late with the podcast. It was finally that time after several podcasts, now 195 to be exact, that we tried switching Ben over to being able to host everything because if the power went out or something like that, as we've seen in a couple weeks ago, we end up kind of up the creek without a paddle. And there is a storm coming here tonight. We still have a lot of down trees. There's a possibility I could get disconnected. So we had to set Ben up. And unfortunately, it just ran a little longer than we thought it was going to. But you know what? It's now set up, and now this has increased our functionality by twofold. Because now we can host from either side of Canada or both at the same time. Well, it's not a snowstorm, Ben, to be perfectly honest with you. It's just wind. It's just wind and rain. We're still sitting at 2 degrees. You guys keep the cold weather. I don't want it. Oh, it is that time of year though. But yeah, so tight. We're chatting about footwear, and it's going to be a kind of a quicker episode. We did run a little late starting up, as we mentioned, ate up a little of our time, and we do have some obligations that we got to go in, in about 30 minutes. So we're going to give you a full episode, 30 minutes, less rambling, very factual. And here we go. So, footwear. This was actually your topic, Ben. Great topic, but let's give a little bit of insight to why you picked this. We've mentioned footwear many times in the past, and it's never a dull topic. But what's your thought process here, Ben? Oh, hold on a second there, Ben. They cannot hear you, good sir. Red Sand Adventures, can you hear me?
Can you hear me now?
And I apologize, everybody. At some end, somebody is going to be listening to this episode wondering what the heck we are on. I swear to God, it's not drugs. We are just very technologically slower. Takes us a little while to get things set up.
I think I have my volume on now, but I want to know if there's an echo.
Perfect. So we're both on now, Ben. So once again, why did you want to do this topic?
Okay, let's see if I can get this verbatim. No, what I was saying is that, like a lot of our topics, it has to do with what I've been doing, sort of in my everyday life. So I got looking at some boots recently and started thinking about the effect that boots have on your everyday life and how one pair of boots just doesn't do, or shoes or footwear doesn't do everything. But it does functions of what you need, and it's really important to have the right footwear for the job. And right now we're going into winter, colder months, and I think there's very few times where the proper footwear is more important than this time of year. And I think you'd agree with that.
I agree wholeheartedly, to be honest with you.
So this is the time of year when we come across a lot of snow, maybe a lot of rain, some pretty harsh environments, and wet, cold feet is a recipe for disaster. Improper traction on your footwear, not having the right footwear means you can be falling. You may not be able to get where you need to go, and it can really make a day miserable, and a trip be from being an pleasurable and enjoyable experience to something that you've you regret even attempting, right? And I think we've all had the wrong pair of footwear at some point in our life and really regretted our choice, you know?
Oh, 100%. Another thing that comes to mind with this, under the footwear thing, is make sure you have footwear that's comfortable to you and not just throw names at what you think, or sorry, throw money at what you think is a good set of footwear. Because I've bought many a good set of footwear that were expensive, quote unquote, because they were supposed to be good, and I've worn them like twice because they don't work for my feet. It was one of those things. I bought them online. Everybody raved about them. They were supposed to be the greatest things since sliced bread. I get them home. I have a wide foot. I'm a bigger guy, flat-footed, very wide foot. The boot just did not work for me. So now I got a brand new set of like $500 boots that I can't do anything with. But that's the reality sometimes. I acknowledge that if I try to force myself to wear those when I go out in the woods, I'm going to do more harm for a lot of reasons we're going to talk about tonight.
Yeah. And that's something actually we share. We both have wide feet. We're both flat-footed, and we've both suffered by wearing the wrong footwear, and it makes a huge difference. So likewise, I know exactly what you're saying. So where do we want to go first? You mentioned comfort, and I think that's a really important one to talk about, because footwear does have to be comfortable. If your foot is too loose in your boot, you're going to have a lot of chafing, a lot of hot spots, and what's going to happen is you're not going to be able to walk as far, and you're going to probably be injured. And the thing is, on a longer hike or a longer trek, you'll only really notice that once you get so far. You have an issue?
Yeah, that should help with the echo issue.
It's probably on my end. Every time you speak, it will go through the speakers. I may have to wear a headset.
Well, we're kind of guinea pigging Red Sand Adventures here, so we'll see if see which one of us it is.
I may be able to help with that.
But yeah, comfort is a major thing when it comes to footwear. Just because it looks good, has a good brand name, has a good reputation, that's all good and dandy. It doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be comfortable for you. Take my industry, for instance, firefighting. Which is, it's not my main job, but it's something that we do a lot with. You can get structural boots that are lace up and stuff like that. It's right. So did that cure the echo sounds there, RSA? Or? I was going to say, I did get a warning here a little earlier that it echoed through a tiny bit.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. So, any case, comfort. So yeah, you gotta make sure they're comfortable for you. Like they gotta, as Ben said, you don't want them too loose, you don't want them too tight, and a lot of people are wearing their boots way too loose. I find, if that makes any kind of sense. Yeah, it must be your end, Ben. They're still getting the echo, bud.
Yeah, I'm sure they would be. I'm just seeing if I can. I have a wireless headset here. I should be able to. Because I don't have wired set readily available, or do I?
This is definitely not going to be our most listened to podcast out there. And I apologize to everybody now. We kind of knew what this was going into it. That it was going to be a lot of kinks being ironed out. And I appreciate RSA helping us there from the comment section, helping us iron some things out. But yeah, I'm still going to upload this. Maybe some people get kicks out of it, but it's definitely not going to be our highest listened to podcast. Maybe we'll approach this some other time, but I think they're doing all right. We got it broadcasted. That's kind of some of the battle.
Oh, it's trying to connect to all kinds of things. I had a set of corded headphones here not too long ago. I don't know where they went.
Well, all you gotta do, Ben, turn your speakers down, bud.
Then I can't hear a thing you say.
Yes, that could be a problem, couldn't it? I mean, I can use sign language.
Nobody wants that. Good sign language?
All right, so I'm just going to continue on chatting here. Hopefully, Ben finds a set of headphones. So, yeah, big thing I noticed with a lot of people in their footwear is they wear them awful loose, or they don't tie them up all the way. And I'm a big believer in if you have a set of boots, and I do like a set of high cut boot. So what does high cut versus low cut boot mean? It's just basically where the top of the boot ends. You can get what's called a low cut boot or an ankle cut boot. Basically, it's just above the ankle bone. There's nothing wrong with that. I prefer a little higher cut, comes up to, a little higher on my shin bone. Just adds a little bit more stability, I feel like. Once again, heavier guy dealing with slippery terrain, steep terrain. If I don't want to roll an ankle, because if I bust my foot somewhere out in the woods, I wouldn't want to be the one to have to drag me out. And I don't want that for anybody else. So for me, it's just a little bit more peace of mind. So with the higher cut boots, even people that own them, they tend not to lace them up all the way, which kind of defeats the purpose of the higher cut. The point of the higher cut, not only does it give you more protection from things biting, stinging, rubbing up against your legs, which is good, but it adds additional support. It braces your ankle a little bit more, so if you're not lacing it up, you're not really gaining anything from that. You might as well get a set of ankle boots and a set of gaiters. But, Terrascotta Vouchers is joining us here. Can Ben mute the mic while not talking? I'll be honest with Terrascotta, most likely. Could he do it tonight? We are flying hot in this. We use a program called OBS. I'm sure some of you folks know this. The thing is, I've had 195 episodes to learn it. Ben has learned everything about OBS in about 30 minutes now.
We should be working much better now. I think.
Alrighty. If anybody's out there in the comment world, either Terra Scout or RSA, can you let us know if the echo's now gone? That'd be very much appreciated. So I don't know if you're listening to us there, Ben. There it is. Okay, we're good. So I was just mentioning about lacing your boots up all the way. If you don't lace them up, you're not really gaining any additional support out of that. It's one of my big pet peeves about people that own higher cut boots, because I know, much like myself, you enjoy a slightly higher cut boot. You don't want sneakers, for instance,
like something at least this high.
Yeah,
6 to 8 inches usually. These are dressier, but yeah, creates the function. That is my preference, and I agree. And a lot of times you want to make sure that the lace, you'll see a lot of people run laces all the way around and tie, so you don't have that extra slack. Because if you have too much lace, and this is a common one, you end up basically with loops that get hooked into everything.
Now, hopefully, I pulled my headset off, so hopefully the echoes don't come back. If it does, somebody let us know, and we'll both wear headsets. But I think I got the echo thing figured out on my side from, once again, 194 episodes of experience with this.
Yeah.
But yeah, and there's actually a proper way to lace your boots. A lot of people just grab their laces and they run them through crisscross and off you go. That's great and dandy. It will work in the basics, but depending on what you want to do, there is ways you can lace your boots, which are going to give you a few added benefits. Like if you find your foot rides too far ahead in your boot, there's a way to lace your boots that'll kind of help that for you. So it's worth looking up online. I'm not going to get into all the different methods to lace your boots here. Not really our point, but there is information out there that you folks can go and check out that will help with a lot of things. Like the common problems I hear is your foot rides far ahead and your heel chafes, or you get hot spot in the bottom of your foot because your foot's constantly moving back and forth across the sole. Can all be cured with the way, I shouldn't say can 100% all be cured, but a lot of times it comes back to the way you're lacing your boots. And I'm guilty for it. I just threw my laces in however they landed in for the longest time until I started doing the research and learning how to properly lace my boots. I'm sure you're familiar with some of the quick lacing methods from the military. I know a couple of my buddies used to really like it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Sort of the add-on to that too is insoles. Now, not all boots require insoles, but boots that do require insoles. So if you're finding them really uncomfortable, if you're finding the ground is just too hard, or that the sole isn't quite what you need, or if you don't have the arch support, getting a good set of insoles can do a lot for a pair of boots. And in fact, I have a couple of pair of boots that I wear on a daily, and I had to go out and buy some decent cushion insoles to improve the quality of that footwear, and it made a world of difference. And that's where you can end up spending 20, $30 on a pair of boots you've already spent a few hundred on to improve that quality. And I got to say, it's oftentimes worth it. It's oftentimes worth spending that extra money to make you comfortable, because a bad pair of boots can basically leave you crippled in the woods. And it can leave you crippled for a few days when you get out of the woods.
No, definitely. I'm trying to remember. When I worked for Natural Resources, I used to use a kind of boot that was called STG. They were about $300, and then I would turn around and put another $80 set of soles inside them. So I'm talking, like $400 boots, and I'm all said and done for something that I'm probably going to burn through in the course of a year, maybe two of them lucky. But
Mm.
the reality is, if you are on your feet, pounding through the woods that much, you need to take care of yourself. Like, it can really become detrimental if you don't.
So, and here's a sort of an example of the boots I just pulled up to quickly show you. Um, you know, they're a foam, they have some arch support, and it makes a big difference. And yeah, like you said, if it's $20, it's $80. I've spent a lot on custom made ones where you had to go in and stand on a platform and they rate you by the type of foot and where you put your weight and all that. And it definitely made a big difference. It really uh, helped my walking, my standing. It helped make me feel better. I don't have back problems, but I think it's because I spend a lot of time taking care of my footwear. Um,
And you know what? That's a big thing a lot of people don't realize either. Just while we're on that, a little caveat. If you have a lot of back problems, start from the ground up. It could be as simple as the shoes you're wearing or the boots you're wearing or the insoles that are in your footwear are just not lining up for you as an individual. You may need to invest a little bit of time getting that figured out. And I know I was plagued with back problems, and my wife was plagued with back problems. So hers is a little different. She was hit by a car and she's got a bad hip. But for me, it turned out to be my footwear. Once again, banging through the woods, wearing cheap boots that fit the need, but had a good brand. Well, maybe not cheap boots. I was wearing boots that had a good brand name, good reputation, and people told me, "Oh, you'll love these boots," and I'd buy them and just force myself to wear them. And it almost crippled me for a couple fire seasons.
yeah, no, you can't. I think it's one of the things, if you're going to have to spend money, there's a lot of spots you can cut a few dollars and not have the best gear. Boots are probably never the place to start cutting money. Spend the extra money on your good footwear, and you're going to really enjoy that for the longevity. So we've talked a bit about making it comfortable, lacing them up correctly. We've talked about boots, and it's because we're both pretty strong proponents of boots. And let's give a couple of quick reasons for that before we move on. We like a high cut boot, and the reason for that is it gives us a ton of ankle support. And so if you're walking through rugged terrain, roots, rocks, and stuff like that, not only does that give your leg a lot of protection from things flicking up and hitting it, it gives you some protection from limbs, things like that flicking into you, potentially animals. I mean, there is across the board reason, but at that extra support, the likelihood of you twisting and harming yourself goes way down. So even if you do twist an ankle, it'll be much less severe, and you're more likely to be able to walk yourself out of there than had you been wearing a pair of, say, low cut tennis shoes. Not knocking tennis shoes, they have a place and time, just might not be when you're climbing up the side of a mountain or going through some pretty rugged terrain.
Oh, and
Uh,
why not, Ben? Why would a pair of sneakers not be the best option to, say, go hiking for the day?
well, you know what? There's plenty. You could go to Mark's Work Warehouse, any boot place, Atmosphere. I seem to be naming only Canadian Tire owned companies. Is that the only place you can get boots in Canada? Um, you can go to these places and they will sell you a hiking runner, which is low cut. And if honestly, if you're going down groomed trails, 100%, you're going to be relatively okay. I'm not going to say you're going to leave that injured.
I was going to say, those hiking runners are meant for more like Victoria Park, right?
Yeah, and that's what I feel, and that's what I say. But I meet people who disagree with me all the time, and they tell me, "Oh, I wear them everywhere. I go through the deepest woods and all that." Uh, in deep woods, you're going to be walking across mossy, boggy areas, so your feet are going to go in, and chances are you're going to end up past your ankle in mud and water. And so, first off, you now have mud and water in your shoe. that's going to be uncomfortable and it's going to be real hard to clean out. If you twist, there's absolutely no support. So if you do twist your ankle, it's no support. Um, I'm not going to knock the soles on any of these things. Oftentimes, you're going to get a very similar sole, but generally, a good pair of boots will be thicker and stronger. Um, all soles are not created equally, and I cannot stress that enough. Some soles have much better traction in snow, ice, rain, those type of things than other soles. You'll generally know you're getting a good pair of boots when you pay a bit more for it, and you're going to see what you're getting. When you buy a boot, make sure you're buying a boot that has the traction for what you're planning on doing. There's a huge difference between a hiker and an office shoe. Um, and so the boots I had up here earlier are an office boot. And I mean, it looks like a boot, yes, but that sole is really thin and there's virtually no traction on
Well,
this.
I can
Like
see that you
almost,
maybe it's just the way that boot goes, but it looks like there is a part right at the ball of your foot
yeah,
that's pretty much worn out, which shows right there that you walk heavy on the balls of your feet, which is another thing I was going to talk about later on, but prime example right there. If you
yeah.
look at the bottom of your soles or the treads on your shoes, boots,
I'm,
whatever,
I'm
you can
also,
generally figure out where you walk hard. Yeah, your heel and ball of your foot. So you walk, that's a classic thing of flat footedness, by the way. You
yeah.
usually hit hard in your heel, then you flop forward on the ball of your foot, and then you lift off on the ball of your foot. And when you're flat footed, there's very little bridging of that. It's always like bang, bang off.
And here's an interesting thing. This is the twin to it. Heel is in much better shape on my right foot, and but the ball is still pretty well equally wore out. So you can tell that I stop harder on my right, or my right foot generally, and I almost
Yeah,
always on the heel.
absolutely.
So you hit a good point there. You can tell a lot about a person by looking at the soles of their boots or shoes. Uh,
Which, funny enough, is one of the skills for tracking. So if anybody was looking for a caveat into another episode, tracking, like looking at people's tracks and telling what they're like, it's
yeah,
you're just doing the opposite. You're looking at what's making the print.
yeah.
Two comments just before we move on, Ben. Christopher Jones joined us here, speaking as a therapist. Please take good care of your feet. So, as a therapist, there you
Yes.
go. Shout out right there. Thanks for backing us up, Christopher. We appreciate that. Welcome to the show, by the way. Not sure if I've seen your name in the comments before. If you were and I'm mistaken, I apologize. And if not, like I said, welcome to the show. And of course, RSA there, I made the mistake of wearing my DC shoes on a white family hike last summer. Let's say I'll never do that again. And that's where I learned not to use sneakers. I used to use sneakers going camping, and it was great. But like Ben said there, usually by the time I got to camp, my feet were wet. But then I decided to do a long hike in these sneakers, carrying a little bit of weight, like my backpack, not only my, my lovely figure, but as well as like a 50-pound backpack. And honestly, by the time I got the 14-kilometer hike in, I like my feet hurt so bad. My thinking was, I mean, sneakers are meant to run. You're gonna, they got flex, they got all this softness. It's gonna be great. It actually starts working against you a little further down the line. You know what I mean? As Ben said, different soles, different compositions. If you're doing a lot of hiking, you want a more rigid sole, not hard, not to the point where it doesn't flex, not a board, but you want something that's a little more rigid. It's going to be less strenuous on you later because every time you roll over a rock or go into a small gully or something like that, it's not bending your foot with it. It absorbs it out through the footwear. As where with a sneaker, generally when you're running, it's more on flat ground and you want to get that tactile feedback onto your feet so you can get speed, traction, and things like that. It's just tip for tap.
Yeah.
Kind of match your footwear to your activity.
And my experience too with a runner, you want it to be as light as possible because you don't want it to be adding weight. Because every time you come down on that runner, the weight of the boot affects your body. So having a heavy boot, running in say a set of work boots, will tire you out infinitely faster than a light pair of runners. Uh, they're purpose built. One is built to be out running and covering a long distance on relatively smooth, flat ground. The other is meant to carry you over rocky, craggy, rooty terrain. So make sure you have the right footwear for what you're doing. Um, yeah, we've always been big proponents of making sure you have the right footwear. Like I said, have the right
insoles in there, especially if your flat foot needs support in certain areas. And it never hurts to see a doctor and find out what's best for you. See a specialist; they can really help you choose the footwear for you.
And Terra Scout mentioned a little further up there that he had prescription insoles or orthotics, whatever you want to call them. Man, those are a godsend if you can get them. I know they're like up. Okay, let me back up a little bit. In Canada, orthotics are one of the things that's not covered under our free healthcare. For
Yeah,
anybody else in the world that thinks Canada's healthcare is the best in the bee's knees, it's not bad. It's just one of the things that's not covered. So we have to pay for ours, and they're upwards. I think, like, I literally just went in to get mine priced, and I think mine are going to be $500.
yeah,
Um, and without some personal insurance, you're paying that out of your pocket. You know what I mean? So I understand why some people are not able to get them. For the longest time, I was not able to get them until I had enough coverage where I could, justify spending $500 for the insoles on a $300 pair of boots. Because now you're talking like $800 to throw in your feet, which is a lot of money, really.
yeah. It was only a few years ago that, like, even Canadian Tire and Costco and those different places, there was a stand you could go up on, and you took your shoes off and you stood on a flat plate, and it actually gave you readings. And I haven't seen it in a few years.
Yeah, that was a Dr. Scholl's thing or something.
I
Was it
think
like the
so.
machine you stood on and told you where all your pressure points were?
Yeah, and it gave you a score, and then you went over and they had boxes there, and you could choose your size and a box with your score, and it really helped. And I did that, and that was actually a relatively reasonable. I think it was like 120 bucks for those soles. So compared to going to the doctor and paying for a top of the line, it was a good intermediate step. It helped without being necessarily custom built to you. Um, I used it. I did like it. So there's that. The other thing, because we don't have a ton of time left, and maybe we'll have to bring this up again later. We wanted to talk about, yes, when you're out there, have the good work boots, but like we say with cover your sleepwear, have a clean, dry pair for when you're at camp. So just like when you go to bed at night and you put on a pair of clean, dry nightwear, whatever that happens to be, so you can sleep more comfortably and all that. Take something. We generally both go with something relatively lightweight, and believe it or not, flip flops are oftentimes an option for that. What do they call
Those just
slip?
came in a camp bag that was sitting
Yeah,
down beside us. And
slip-ons, whatever.
honestly, you just flip them together like that, and bam, throw them in your bag.
Yeah. So anything like that, Crocs, flip flops, lightweight, easy to put on shoes that are comfortable, and you can just go around the camp. It allows those boots that you've been in all day, walking pretty heavily, to dry out, because otherwise they're going to stay pretty damp. And only a few days in, your risks of things, even like foot fungus, but just general sores and stuff, go through the roof. It never hurts to carry a little bit of foot, foot powder to put into your boots, and have good clean socks. Every day you should have at least one pair of clean socks to wear. Um,
And the
eh,
proper socks for going through the woods.
yeah,
Don't grab your. I
dress socks.
starting the argument here now. I can hear it. Tube socks for long hikes, like your cotton tube socks, probably not your best option. Get a decent pair of socks for trudging around through the woods. If you can handle the feel with a set of wool socks, that's your best. Yes, they're hot and all this good stuff, but the wool has many benefits. It absorbs a lot of the chafing aspects and things like that. It wicks moisture away fairly well. And even if it gets wet, it retains a lot of heat. It dries fairly easily. I mean, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah. Merino wool socks are getting easier and easier to get, and we've talked about this before. This is footwear, but not boots. Um, if you go to even like Mech and any of these places, you can buy like darn tough socks, high quality wool socks. Often have a lifetime warranty. Buy two or three pairs of these socks. You have socks for life, really. You know what I mean? Keep them in the cycle. Keep changing them, and you have socks for a long time. Um, it's an important part of your foot care. Taking care of your feet in general is important. Make sure it's the right footwear for the job. We won't get into every type. In the winter, you definitely want waterproof. You definitely want warm. In the summer, still waterproof is important, but it doesn't have to be as warm. You can go with something a little bit lighter. we talked with this before. I'm just trying to get a few last things out. If you're canoe, kayaking, anything in the water, getting something that can basically drain the water out and dry quickly, or using something like the flip flops is a really good option. I have some Columbia drain makers, and so does my wife, and we really like them because you can sort of step in, and when you take your foot up, 90% of the water drains right back out. They will still stay damp for a while though, so you still need to dry them, but it makes the trip during the day when you're canoeing and kayaking a lot better. So that was just a sort of a thought there.
Yeah, or any kind of like water shoes, straight up. Like you can go on Amazon, type in water shoe, and it's going to give you basically a sock with a hard rubber bottom on it. Those things are great. Like I like those for around the canoe. If I'm not going to be portaging far, I don't want to go for a long walk in these things, but just to kind of walk over some basic stuff, they're not bad. In
Hmm.
all honesty, Mel has an even better set that's a lot like yours, Ben. To be honest with you, it actually has a nice thick bottom on it, they drain out and stuff like that. I cheaped out, of course. So she paid like $34 for hers on Amazon, and I was like, you know what? I'll pay the $12.99 and see what I get.
You got what you got.
And it was terrible. So, no, Mel just walked by. I thought maybe she had the shoes, but she does not.
But
Water shoes. But yeah, sorry.
my drain makers are like running shoes, and honestly, I have used them as running shoes. The only thing I have to keep in mind is if I stand in a puddle with these, water comes up through them just as easily as they go down through them. So it's not a one-way valve. So keep that in mind. But other than that, yeah, I think we've covered a lot of the things I wanted to cover. We do. I will apologize. We are setting up and running through my computer. I would like to know, is there a difference in video quality um, to any of you? Because I haven't been checking, but I did notice sometimes mine seem blurry.
Yeah, there we go. Just for the water shoe thing there. This is what Mel has. This was a
Yeah,
nice $30 shoe. And honestly, I will be investing into a set of these. And this was my $12.99 specials. Like, it's basically a water sock. But I mean, it still serves its purpose. But a couple extra dollars definitely would have went a little further.
do you want me to grab the drain makers real quick?
Yeah, if you don't mind, just to kind of fire it up while we have 3 minutes left. And as Ben was saying, this is the first time that we broadcast from Ben's computer through the OBS software. For those of you out there, Chris, Tara, RSA, how's the video quality? Is there any noticeable difference? Do we really pooch this up bad? I mean, same as always, folks. We learned a lot of this trial by fire. So hopefully it's not bad. It was a roller coaster of a podcast, that's for sure. A lot of it was just us finding ourselves, and we apologize for that. But I mean, it is what it is. Most of you folks have come to us at this point knowing that it's going to be an adventure. That's why it is the Atlantic Bushcraft Adventures. Not all adventures are in the bush. Sometimes they're just doing the podcast.
Yeah. So here's just a standard pair of Columbia boots I've been wearing for years. These are trail hikers for me. Like if I'm going on a groomed trail with boardwalks, this is what I'll sometimes wear. This here is the drain makers. You can see they're virtually similar. They're lace in. The thing is, the sole has holes all the way through it, and you can really see them on the sides. And these holes actually allow the water to drain through. If you go inside the boot, and it's hard to see, it's designed to drain. Being a little bit more thicker, the whole sides are mesh and a rather waterproof mesh, as in it won't hold water, but it'll still hold some moisture. So advantages and disadvantages, but I can portage with these where I would not necessarily portage with Roberts. But when they're damp, I still find they chafe. So I will still carry good boots, usually in a dry bag, so that when we are portaging, if anything happens, they stay dry until I'm out and I can walk.
Cool. So that's some examples. Once again, a little hurried of an episode here tonight, but I think we covered some good points, and we'll probably touch on these again. It's stuff we always talk about. We're huge advocates for taking care of your feet. If you take care of your feet, they'll take care of you. If you don't take care of your feet, you're going to have a very long time somewhere.
Yeah, we've told stories before where I think me, you, and our partners have all made the mistake of the incorrect footwear and really regretted it. So we can't stress it enough. Get the right footwear. Enjoy your trip. Absolute last thing I want to say, break the footwear in before you commit to a 3 or 4 day hike. Just going to say.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. Breaking them in is definitely the way to go. Don't try and break a pair of boots in going on a long hike. And I have a story that could link to that, but that's for another time. Maybe Melissa will come on and tell it because it's her story, honestly.
Yeah, I got similar. We'll do that later. Okay.
Yep.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for joining us. You have a pretty good.
Yep. Okay, everybody. That's it for us for here tonight. I have to admit, Ben, it's a little weird being on this end without having OBS up. But yeah, get out there, play safe, have fun. We'll see you next week. It'll be a little bit more of a stable show. Once again, apologize for the roller coaster here tonight, but you know what? It was a learning experience for us, and hopefully you folks got some laughs, if nothing more than just to kind of have a chuckle and go, listen to those jokers trying to figure out how to use OBS on the fly. Night, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Bye.